to get through this.
Easy for listening and it's able to do it.
Easy for dancing. I'm not a great lover of cats.
That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are. Not me.
That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to One-on-One Shadowboxing, Have Your Say. Today my guest at the WTV studios, Jill Hugo, who is Assistant Secretary of the Service Unions WA.
Yes.
Jill, you're here to not to cry, but to mobilize a little bit maybe and do some educational work and spread some knowledge to the people who most likely needs it. Our audience is that. Jill, tell me something about yourself. Short, how long you've been involved with the unions and what you've done before.
Sure. I've been involved in the union movement now probably for about 10 years. I've been with the Australian Services Union WA branch for 6 years, 6 of those years, and I've been the Assistant Branch Secretary, which is a great privilege for me, for around 2.5 years now.
And how do you see the union movement in Australia or in WA today in the 21st century?
Look, we're experiencing a difficult time. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. We are experiencing a difficult time, but I think that makes us stronger. I think that our job is to educate and mobilise and carry the fight forward and fight the good fight. And our members, who are still substantial and definitely substantial in the energy sector, expect us to do that.
How could you, positively see this fight when in this country is a witch hunt against unions?
Look, there's always been that sort of thing against unions. We understand that. We continue on. Our branch in particular has grown for the last 7 years. We're very proud of that. Our members are very proud of that. Unions are some of the most democratic organisations out there. We're run by executives. Those executives are made up of our members who give up their time to come and democratically run our organisation as directed by the wider membership.
So how can then everyone say now in the media and in politics, Australian unions are the most corrupt unions in the world?
Look, I can't speak for the whole union movement, obviously.
No, I know you couldn't, but it's just a feeling. Yeah. I mean, people not distinguish between your union and the other unions. They just say, let's filter through when I'm waking up or go to bed. Again, a union case, corruption, corruption, corruption.
Sure, I understand that, and from our perspective, it's about being open and transparent, and it should be an expectation from members that their union is open and transparent, and if they are not open and transparent, well then action should be taken by the membership to make them open and transparent. I can absolutely tell you that our branch is very open and very transparent.
Now your branch is maybe open and very transparent, but that's not why you're here. You're here because of an issue which is concerning your members and probably concerning the West Australian, populace as well, not just your members. And this is a tendency what this state government is showing up now very clearly. Privatize, privatize, privatize. Sell everything. Now, one of the sale is a fire sale, which is promoted by Colin Barnett and our treasurer, selling West Empire Utility, selling an infrastructure which is so vital in distributing the energy, not necessarily to generating the energy, but distribution, go to the homes. What do you think, first of all, why they want to sell it?
So if you listen to the Barnett government, in particular Colin Barnett and Mr Nahan, what they will say is that this state is in considerable debt.
That everyone knows.
Some $30 billion. And what they say is that Western power is worth anywhere between $12 and $15 billion, and that will go a substantial way to paying off that debt. What
First
our
of all,
members,
yeah,
well,
first
what
of-
our members say,
Yeah.
this is what our members say in response to that, is that that is a short-term solution. It has not worked over East, and it is an asset that belongs, the infrastructure is an asset that belongs to the Western Australian people, and this government, this state government, does not have a mandate to sell those assets and therefore should not engage in that. Now, they have basically said that they're considering privatisation. What we've seen over a very long period of time with our members, and we represent a very large portion of the Western Power employees, what we've seen is a trimming of the fat, so to speak. So restructure upon restructure, redundancies upon redundancies.
Cut back.
Yes, absolutely. And our grave concern is that this organisation is being trimmed up ready for sale, ready for privatisation.
That's not questioned by the government. They believe it's ready for sale. That's why they're saying they want to sell it.
Yes,
But
well,
go
they're
back to-
considering selling it, is what they
consider-
say.
It's politicians never say
Yes,
what
yes,
they
yes.
what
But
they
I don't
really
want
say.
to be misquoted, Tibor. So,
No. Okay, so they're considering. So
yes.
Colin Barnett and Nathan and the other members of the parliament or the party or the government is considering to sell
Yes.
Western Power. And the reason for that, they give the debt of Western Australia. How we lost our credit ratings?
because
And
this...
what are credit ratings now?
So I believe we've lost our AAA credit rating, and you know, that is a direct result of the mismanagement of our economy and the mismanagement of what was a boom time by this state government. That is our view, and it is short-term and short-sighted to think that you can come along and privatise a whole range of assets that belong to the Western Australian people. And it is the Western Australian people who should actually have a say in this. So this, for us, is about what people will be asked to consider at the next state election.
But if the sale is happening before the next election, then the people couldn't consider much, except the democratically elected government is made the move and sold the assets. It's not just Western Power, it's all sorts of assets this government consider to
So-
sell and negotiating hardly with lots of real sales as well.
Sure.
So my question is, how the management of a company, which is in this case our state, if I can use that allegory, is a company. So if I got the chairperson of the company, say Colin Barnett, who is the chair of this company, really, and Nathan or someone else before, managing the finances of this company, and they failed that much,
Well, then they
If
should
it's a
be
private
voted
company,
out. They
they-
should be voted out.
no, they should be kicked out immediately, suspended and sent home to cry in the corner.
That's not how a political system works, Tibor. You know that. So this
But
is
that
about
system
coming
is
up
not
to the...
working. That's
I
my
understand
point.
that, but
That's my point.
it is the system that's in place, and so we have to work within that. And our campaign, the Usual Power campaign, is about trying to stop the privatisation and stopping any price hikes, which will result from that privatisation, because at the end of the day, a private company will be about maximising the profit margin. It won't be about providing good resources. It
And
won't be
services?
about...
No.
No, it won't be about
It's
that.
about profit making
It will
and
be
making
about
more
profit
profits.
making.
So why the politicians say the energy prices should come down in privatization, the service should improve, and everything is going to be hunky-dory.
Well,
and
I
in the
can't-
meantime, they can,
Obviously,
pay
I
back
can't
what
answer
they are, you know,
I understand
spent.
that, but I can't answer on behalf of the politicians who say this. Our experience of privatisation elsewhere is that it means prices go up. The Department of Treasury have stated that in order for a private company to look at any kind of profit margin, that
When
prices...
they're purchasing something, a
So,
new company, or setting up, yes?
The prices will need to go up by probably around about 50%. So that's on an average family bill is probably around about $800 a year. That's a substantial amount of money for not only our members, but for the
Everyone.
Western Australian public. And so, look, our campaign really is leading up towards the state election. We are calling on the Western Australian community, the Western Australian public to get behind that campaign. It is a community campaign. I know it is something that has come out of our movement, directed by our members, and both the ASU and the ETU, the Electoral Trades Union, are running this campaign jointly. And we are calling on the Western Australian public to not only get behind that campaign and support that campaign, but to take action to do that. So that
what
means,
sort of actions they can
so
take?
we're asking people to go onto our Facebook page, the Use Your Power Facebook page. So that is www.facebook.com/Use Your Power WA, and like that page and make a comment. But we're also asking the Western Australian public to go onto the Use Your Power website, which is useyourpower.com.au/get-active. And what that will do then...
So if they're going there, what can they do?
So there's a whole range of information that they can educate and inform themselves about what has been happening elsewhere. But there's also an ability to be able to type in your postcode and then send a message directly to their MP. And we need that message to get up to Parliament House, to all the MPs, no matter what side of politics they are on, to say that the community of Western Australia opposes the privatisation and the sale of our assets. In particular, we are focused at the moment, obviously, on Western Power. But it's not just those assets. There is involved in that as well Synergy and also Horizon.
We have to go for a short break.
Okay.
But after the break, we're coming back and
Sure.
continue our discussion on the West Australian government privatisation plans and the effects on the users. Hello and welcome back to Have Your Say, one-on-one shadowboxing. We are here at WTV Studios with Jill Hugo, who is Assistant Secretary of the Service Union WA. Jill, when we stopped for the break, you said so many other things is going on in the energy industry or infrastructure of WA, not just the privatization of Western Power. Tell us about this.
Sure. So the energy sector is not just Western Power. You also have Synergy, which encompasses the generation side of power, and they also deal with the retail side of power. And then you have Horizon that is in the regional areas. So you have the three companies
Yes.
that are subject to all of this. The focus is on Western Power because they're probably the biggest entity. We understand that the energy sector is in a period of great transformation, absolutely incredible transformation with solar energy, with wind, with wave power. And, you know, some people would say that the day of the coal-fired power station is over. And we understand that, you know, in terms of moving forward, there has to be a transformation. We absolutely understand that. And our members understand that. But at the end of the day, those things need to be invested in by the people who run this state. on behalf of the West Australian public. So it is not a question of just privatising it out, raising power prices. It is a question of actually investing in our state for the long term, for the future, so that our children and their children have opportunities.
But do the politicians care about our children and their children and the grandchildren?
What we're asking for is that the West Australian public make them care. And that's part of our campaign. That's
Just about time, but that's very late. A little bit sounds late. Never too late.
Never too late. Never too late.
But that's the
Tibor.
point. So it's the movement starting now, and it
Yes.
have to be kept up, the movement, because politicians don't understand
Sure.
anyway if they don't want to understand. But it's a logical thing again, back to the company and the chair of the company and the financing director of the company, so Barnett and Nathan, and they're sitting around the table and say, okay, we're making the plan for the next 5 years after the election or 4 years, and we're selling all these assets and we're paying some of the debts back. However, when we are reducing our income, we're generating more debt for the future. So what
Absolutely.
these people are thinking, how
makes no
do they make up the maths?
You would have to ask them that, Tibor. For me,
I,
it
I,
makes
I,
no sense.
I don't want to ask them because they are silly enough to not even know what they're doing, because if they know what they're doing, they're not doing it. So there's no point to ask them because they are in power and they're ignorant and they don't listen anyway. So that's the problem. But I'm asking you because you represent the movement or part of the movement anyway.
Yes.
And you have to somehow figure out why people doing what they're doing.
Yes.
Because if we don't know that, and the union don't know that, and the people of WA don't know that, then how to fight against is very hard.
Sure.
So that's why I'm asking. Sorry, not because
No, I understand.
I got very clear reason why I don't ask politicians.
Yep.
Because they lie. They are liars, and we're paying the price for it, and we're paying the wages as well. So that's an entertainment itself. So I just want to get into the bottom of things so the people who are watching us, they can understand better.
So if we think about it on a micro scale, if we think about it in terms of family
Yes.
and family budgets, okay. I don't know about you, but I invest in my family. I invest in my family's budget. I invest in my children. I invest in my children through education. I invest in my children within the budget and how we actually manage things within our family. And if you don't invest and you just sell, then basically, long term, you don't have a future.
You're
You don't have
suffocating
a future.
yourself, yes.
And that's what we, I suppose, what we need, the Western Australian public to understand. And I think they understand perfectly. I don't think I need to tell the West Australian public what this is all about. This is about investment in future. So, for instance,
Investment in future to protect the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Not invest in the future to sell the infrastructure,
Absolutely.
what the government
It
wants.
is, it is. So, you know, the future of the energy sector is in solar and batteries and in wave technology and in wind power. And those investments should be made on behalf of the Western Australian public in the future, absolutely. But more importantly, there needs to be investment in our future jobs. So what you see with privatisation is a reduction in the numbers of apprentices that are taken on, a reduction in the number of people that actually work in Western Australia. So
It's a huge reduction in that
absolutely.
number
So
of
what
people.
you see with private companies is that you see that they look at offshoring the jobs that they can, the customer service jobs, the telephone jobs, the jobs that are admin
IT.
support, IT, all of those jobs that they can potentially offshore. They don't have a problem with doing that. Now, if this infrastructure is in the hands of the Western Australian people, there is an opportunity to invest in the Western Australian people through apprenticeships, through making sure that there are jobs here for Western Australians.
Which is less and less every day. So that's obviously something which we have to keep in mind
Sure.
always.
Sure.
So, don't you think the government is cunningly enough thinking about, okay, we're selling Western power, or the power industry, a big part of the power industry, maybe the other two companies as well, and to look into a new income, they already proposed, but they withdrew that proposal quickly, taxing your solar panels. So as many you got on your roof, you have to pay tax for it.
Yes.
That's a clever way. That probably can raise more money than charging for the electricity bill.
But that's not investment. That's not
No,
investment in our future.
that is
That's not
robbing,
invest
that
in-
is robbing the people.
Absolutely. It's not investment in our future. It's not investment in our infrastructure. And if you look at the example of what happened in Queensland, for instance,
Yes.
the Campbell-Newman government were removed from power because one of the very key prominent issues there was privatisation of energy. And they lost power after one term, with a substantial majority, I might add, when they were in, and the Queensland people spoke. The Queensland people spoke at their state election. Now, from our perspective, our members are asking us to ask the Western Australian public to do the same, to speak up, to tell the politicians that this is unacceptable.
And you think the Western Australian people will outsmart the Queensland people?
I am
Or at
very,
least?
very, very sure and hopeful that the Western Australian public are very similar and will. Now, the indications that we're getting from all the comments online that we are seeing, absolutely, that is where the Western Australian public is.
Now, a little bit open up with the West Australian point of view. This privatization is not only a West Australian thing. Unfortunately, this is a federal government attitude.
Sure.
And if you read the sort of proposal for the future of the Australian infrastructure report, 2016, which is tabled on the 17th of February this year, you can read that nothing for the next 15 years, just privatizing everything, all the assets. So we are ending up in 15 years' time with no assets for Australia, just private assets for Australia. Where are we heading, and
So-
what's moving? You know, the organization called Infrastructure Australia.
So, first of all, I would ask you where that report comes from.
Infrastructure Australia, which
and-
is proudly claims itself on their website, on the first page, independent.
All right.
However, I noticed that on the left-hand side of the same page is the state government's logo and say, Commonwealth of Australia.
Well, that's very interesting. So, really, the West Australian public should not be fooled by these reports that come out. And the West Australian public should actually stand up and make their views known. And we are calling on them to do that. Absolutely.
But if nationwide the the federal government want to privatize all the airports, they want to all the ports, the port facilities,
Yep.
railway, storage, and transport.
Yep.
What's going to remain for the people?
So the voice of the people is the election. That's the voice
Is that
of the
enough?
people.
You
Yes,
think
I think
it
it
can
is.
turn?
I think it is. I think it is enough. We've
It
seen
doesn't
that.
happen in England, doesn't happen in elsewhere in the
We've
world.
seen it in Queensland. We've seen it recently in Queensland. You know, governments change, governments fall if they get it wrong. If the Australian people are not happy, well, then governments fall.
That's very, very ensuringly positive, but I think a little bit naive. Because all over the world in the so-called Western countries
Yes?
and Western democracies, it's already triumphed. Privatization is the key word. It's in Europe, it's all over. And no one standing up and try to stop that. But the big point is, in the past, since the Second World War and before, everything was built up in Australia is built up by the people
Yep.
with our own money. Now, the current governments, the Liberals, want to sell everything and privatize.
So my question to you is, do we do nothing? You call me
I don't
naive,
think-
but do we do nothing?
I think you're doing the right thing, absolutely, to fight.
Yes.
And fight vigorously as vigorously you can.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying naive is to hope that before the fight is even peaked, to win, that is naive. Because if the government is quick enough and quicker and can out-manipulate the public, they can win as they win in the other countries.
But that's why we're here. We're here to promote what we're doing. We're here to talk to you about this campaign and to ask the Western Australian public to get behind it and to really send a message to the politicians that this is unacceptable.
Jill, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And good luck for the fight. First of all, for the fire sale of the Western Power to stop and to stop all this idiotic privatization in
Thank you.
Australia. Don't forget, next week, same time, same channel, have your say, one-on-one shadow boxing.
That's my fear.
You're just right here.